What is up, y'all? It is that time of the week, last week on Instagram. This is where we go back and we look at posts of mine from last week where, in a short amount of seconds and only a short caption, we can only give out so much information. So we're going to dive a lot deeper into some of these reels that were posted last week on Instagram. So without further ado, and I got this. It's a little chilly in here. So without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, our first one we're looking at. So this would be, I think, my most recent Monday or Sunday. Yeah. So it's titled "The Cleanest Freestyle to Learn From." Now I have a YouTube video where I talk about my top sprinters, and Nathan Adrian is my favorite sprinter to watch. And I believe I might have this in another video, but he just does a lot of things. Like I would say, he does a lot of things right and a lot of things not wrong. Right, and a big part of swimming fast is eliminating the things you do wrong, right? Like if you make a lot of power, you can't be sloppy moving through the water, right? So just not doing bad things is a huge part of being an elite sprinter. So sorry guys, I got a little coming on. The reason why I like Nathan Adrian's freestyle, when I talk about somebody who has good technique or bad technique, the thing I'm looking for is, does this translate to younger swimmers, right? So if you're, Nathan would be at Cal, he's talking to his other high talent teammates, they're going to understand things just by the very nature of being elite swimmers. But when you go to the club level, when you go to like the recreational level, and even like the club recreational level, or what I call, my favorite groups to work with, the Island of Broken Toys, your technique has to actually work, right? So in Nathan Adrian's case, you took his whole stroke and you could replicate each individual thing, like every split second of technique he does, into skills and a drill progression, and then teach it to kids. And at the end of the day, if they applied themselves and they learned everything that Nathan Adrian knows, it's going to convert at a very, very high clip. You're going to have a lot of really good freestylers. Whereas there's other swimmers with other errors, some distance swimmer, I think, who's actually a open water swimmer, right? Where if you took his technique and you boiled it down to just drill progressions, and you taught that to a bunch of, like the Island of Broken Toys, let's just say the bottom 60% of your talent pool, it's not going to work. It's not going to convert. Right? So when I say bad technique versus good technique, it's like when we take this down, strip it down to its bare parts and remove your ability to out-athlete errors or be talented enough to overcome and overcompensate for errors, does it still convert to swimmers, making fast swimmers? So, and Nathan Adrian, like I said, he does so much right, does almost nothing wrong, that his technique converts. And, you can look at something like, let's just take that same guy, the open water swimmer, right? Who jackknifes his hips side to side. Literally bends his body like this when he's swimming. Right? He may have a great recovery, right? So we take that recovery, boil it down to a drill, and then we translate it to little kids. It might be like, okay, his recovery is great technique. It translates to these untalented athletes and makes them better, right? Where the content has to actually work, right? So every time I'm looking at something, it's like, okay, like if I take that and give it to an untalented kid, will they get faster? And it could be the kick, right? It could be driving from their quads and their hamstrings. It could be how they're diving. It could be where they're reaching. Are they next to the head? Are they under their chin, right? It's those things are what I look for that determine good technique. And you might say, Dax, how do you know that that's good technique? I test it. Right, and I'm confident enough to know that what kind of makes sense and what doesn't. But then, like, if I test it and it doesn't work, to get out of that drill quickly, right? And whether that's feedback from the kids or just observation, you got a year-long season to make a kid faster. Why are you not experimenting? You just gotta make sure you deliver, though. Don't experiment and then not deliver. All right, let's jump to the next video. Okay, we're gonna listen to this one. Let me make sure the volume is working. It's important. We can solve that real quick. Everybody's got to start kicking from their knees, especially being black too. We got these huge thigh muscles. When I got to UT, I was like, there's no way I'm kicking from my hips. Like, I'm out deadlifting the whole team as a freshman. It's not even the technique, it's the biomechanics. We had this little 9-year-old Asian girl, light as a feather, going 111 or 113 100 kick with the board. We had this girl who, she goes from like 210 to 119. You know, we taught her how to use her hamstrings.
Club teams don't dedicate that type of time and focus. It's just swim, swim, swim.
That's the issue. It's not what they're doing, it's how are we teaching it. All right, guys. So that's from me and Elvis's new podcast, the Night Swim Podcast. I'll put the link in the description. Go check us out. But excuse me. The point that I'm trying to make here. So I teach all of my kicking content in the Rakeley Technique Solutions library as a knee bend kick, right? And I truly believe that that's the way, because we're walking all day. Our leg muscles are naturally stronger than our arm muscles, right? That's why, and you know, we're more coordinated. But like a handstand, people struggle with, even people who have the actual balance skills. Like if they walked around all day on their arms are going to give out a lot faster than their legs would. So it's like you're basically spending all day strengthening your leg muscles when you're walking around. So we want to use them. Use what you got. And a big part of that is getting to the hamstrings. You know, for our little ones, we just, not little ones, 10 and unders, we just teach them how to get to the hamstrings. For the older kids, we go into how to not only use the hamstrings, but use the whole posterior chain, right? So it becomes more of like a full back, not upper back, but like full posterior chain, low back, glutes, hamstrings, right? And I also believe that, coincidentally, that same area, like the mid hamstring up to the glutes in the back, are more for stabilization, right? So if I have a kick that produces a down force, right, the ankle flexing backwards is going to help push water back this way, right? But as it extends, it's going to snap and produce a down force. Now my hip has to move to make sure that energy that travels from the splash pushes my body or pushes through my legs into my body and pushes my body forwards. So I believe that, you know, what looks like the thigh going up and down and kicking from the hips, I believe it's trying to just make sure it's in the right place to capitalize on the force from the kick. And when you really think about it, if the splash is what moves the swimmer forward, which I think it is, that's why everyone's always yelling white water. It doesn't make any sense. If you really think about it, guys, like really think about it. The splash of the kick doesn't make any sense unless the splash is what's moving the swimmer forward, right? Because if you're just pushing water back, you could just keep your feet underwater and it wouldn't be that big of a difference, right? But because the foot has to come out, the splash is what's moving the athlete forward. And then there's some math and stuff that goes into kicking from the hip and having to stop and change directions and how much more tiring that is, and slower versus from the knee. Like the benefits are just a lot better from the quad. And like I said, you know, first team I was on, we had this little Asian girl. She was 9 years old or 8 at the time. She was 9, just turned 9. And, you know, like I said, I teach everybody to kick from their knees. We specifically do this to make sure we're attacking the hamstring and getting that power out. And she was one of those kids where if she grabbed a kickboard, like the board like was almost on her chest, like tiny little thing, 9-year-old. And she was going 113s for 100 kick. The other girl, the 119, this was at a different coaching stop. And this girl, she just started joining the team, right? This was in January. And like I said, 210 kicker. And then we started working on the groups kicking. You know, everybody got a lot better. We had a lot of kids go from, and you know, age is a part of it too because they got to get stronger. But usually by age 10, you know, they're going sub 130, right? That's our goal. But like I said, with her, you know, she was a kid who was very athletic too, which is the best type of young swimmer to have. So her jump was expected. Same with the little Asian girl. Her name was Katie. Same thing. I think she did basketball. You know, like little kid, you know, like upward, if y'all remember that, basketball, church league type stuff. And, yeah, like, it's always worked. You know, I've had kids between then who are on teams that give out, like, Kicker of the Year, right? And every kid I've gotten from that group not every kid, but let's just, no, I take it back. So kids within their age group, because I've had multiple kids in the same age group, so they couldn't win it because the other kid won it. But I've had kids come to me who were, solid. They're strong in the legs, and then solid kickers, but then got the Kicker of the Year award, right, multiple times. So, gotta teach these kids how to kick. All right, let's go on to the next one. Okay, so this drill is, so a lot of the stuff that I was taught, right? And if you're a swimmer or really fast, or just swimmer to a really fast swimmer, you know that it's never just like drill progressions you get. The higher up the totem pole you get, it's like, hey, this should feel like this, and then they'll watch you and they'll be like, no, you need to switch it like this, and then you'll do it and it looks right, but then they ask you how it feels and it doesn't feel right, or what you describe isn't what they know. So then you go back and forth. And I remember my first year coaching, I tried to teach a bunch of kids how to do sprint freestyle through feel. And it took us all year to get it done. And then they graduated and I got a new group of kids and I was like, I can't spend a whole year doing this, right? And that was kind of one of the first moments of like Rakeley moments where it's like, I need a drill progression to do this. Like I'm not going to take a whole year to teach this every time where we don't get to spend time actually training on it and getting better with it. So the purpose of this was one of the creations, right? It was what Pearsall told me to do. And then I pay attention, like, as I'm getting better kicking at UT, to like, what muscles am I feeling activate, right? Where am I feeling the burn at? Why am I not feeling these other places? And, then I'm researching things. The figure 4 is actually, I think it's a running position. I think runners will call it cycling your heel underneath you. It's also present in cycling and it's present in flutter kicking. So that was part of my research is, hearing about running, and then it's called, you see it in cycling. And then, I was like, oh, I bet I can teach freestyle kicking like this. And then when I started, using it on myself, I started recognizing like, oh, this is the exact same feeling I got from Pearsall's drills, or what Pearsall wanted me to do to get better. And that's the story. That's how this drill came to be. So all of our Rakeley content, it's these conversations with these athletes, with these coaches that we took and then made into drills to produce the same feelings and effects that they wanted us to have when they were teaching me it. All right, so yeah, let's jump to the next one. I believe this is our last one. Oh yeah, get your head down like Ian Thorpe. All right. Clearly, head not down. Clearly. Now, the thing about this that I love so much is it's such a like a rage bait to a degree, because it's not about the head, right? Now, usually if the head position's like this, it guarantees the actual effect, which is, let's see if we can, I'm gonna try and grab it right here, which is this chest bowed forward. Right now, if you look at where his neck is and you kind of imagine where his chest rounds up to, it almost looks like his chest rounds up right into his chin, right? So it's that chest forward position that we're actually trying to get to, right? That good posture where you have your shoulders up, pulled back, chest out, head tilted back a little bit. You're looking down your nose at everybody that you're better than. Like, that's where we want to be. And it's this position that you get all your power from when you're swimming, right? Like, you don't do pull-ups like collapse and like this with your head down, right? How most people try and tell you to swim, right? Or they don't tell you about the posture, but that's how swimmers naturally are, right? We all have bad postures. When you do pull-ups, you're here and then your hands are underneath or in front of your collarbone, right? So the get your head down like Ian Thorpe, like I said, it's a little rage baity, but it's the swimmers who do swim like this, the younger swimmers, probably have a good posture on accident. And that's why I stopped coaching. I think I had this kid named Noah who, let's see, how old was he? When he was 8 or 9, swam with like a super high head position. And he was killing everybody in practice. And this is like when I was beginning, I didn't believe in the keep your head down stuff, but I knew that keep your head up was ill-advised, right? But I'm watching this kid just destroy everybody. And I start thinking like, I think I'm wrong. I'm just gonna let him do this. He ended up being one of our fastest 10-year-olds. For those of you who don't know, the team I started coaching on was the team that I grew up on, and my brother was like the godsend, and he like one of the fastest swimmers ever for a 10 and under. You know, perennial top 3 swimmer nationally, and he had a 109 record in the 100 free, or 109.1 or something like that, right? Something really fast. 200 free yards, like 211, right? For a 10-year-old. And so this boy with the high head position barely misses his 100-meter free record. He goes like 109.4, barely misses it, and then goes at the Christmas period right before he aged up, goes like 213, like misses the 200 free record, right? And these are records that have been around since. Let's see, when would he have been 10? 92, 2002, right? So 10-year-old records, now 20-year-old records. And it was kind of a point where it's like, we took his natural gift and kind of left it there. Because I remember I had a bunch of talks with his mom, right? Because he has a high head position, and everybody's telling him get his head down. This is back when I was coaching him, and I told him, Mom, I was like, look, his high head position is something that a lot of elite swimmers do, right? Although it's not the purpose of the high. The purpose isn't the high head position. It's kind of more of a aesthetic more than it is a feature or a thing. Because you'll look at a video like Sun Yang and you'll see his big chest, like it's almost, you can see the line of his chest slanted, but then he just rounds his chin down. And that's how I teach it to sprinters. Just keep those eyeballs in the water, get everything else out. And I told his mom, I was like, look, I'm going to let him just keep doing it because, a lot of great swimmers do it because it makes them more powerful, allows them to use their chest muscles. And it's just something we'll keep an eye on, right? Like if it starts getting in the way of him swimming fast, we'll change it. But like I said, fast, strong swimmers use it, right? And, he's been cutting up. He's still cutting up, right? I think he's almost a junior or senior now, balling. So I think that's our last video for today. Nice little 17 minutes. Yeah, it is. So that's it, guys. Let us know what you think. What do you think about the high head position? Is it the benefits of it, being able to get more power, outweigh the negatives? Legs kind of sink, not swimming flat, lower hips. Do the benefits outweigh the negatives, or vice versa? Right? Vice versa would mean that we need to swim more flatter with our head down. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Thanks for coming and hanging out. We love y'all over here. I love y'all. It's just one of us. I love y'all. Thanks for hanging out. Hit that notification bell so you know when we drop a video. Drop a like so we can push this information, get this advice out to people who need it in the swimming world, and subscribe. Peace.